of the, oops. City Clerk, what's happening? It's not on?
Member
Okay.
Basua?
Here.
Member Madrigal?
Here.
Chair Ramirez?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, November 5th.
Thank you very much. Now, at this time, we'll have the flag salute, and I'm going to ask Councilwoman Basua to lead us. Okay, so this is the time for public comments for items not on the agenda. And I don't know if we have any, Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comment? Okay, so we'll just go into, no, is there anyone who'd like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda? Okay, I'm seeing none, just to make sure. I wanted to ask that. So we will go to the next item, which is the consent agenda. And before us is the approval of minutes. Do committee members have any comments, suggestions, corrections?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. So we need a vote. We're not using our little machines, are we?
No.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Do you want to just do all in favor?
All those in favor of approving the minutes of October 22nd, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, good. We're done there. So we're going to go on to the next item, which is a report, update on the agreement with Venue Tech for the management and operations of the Oxnard Performing Arts and Convention Center. And we'll have Mr. Harrison, correct? Or Ms. Golden, would you like to kick it off?
Yes,
please?
I'll just kick it off, and then I'll have Mr. Harrison, the Cultural and Community Services Director, give the presentation. But I just want to frame the issue before you today and make sure that we're clear that we're not asking the council committee to make a recommendation to the full council at this point on an agreement. Obviously, there's not an agreement attached to your packet, so I think that's pretty clear. But during the budget process, we obviously recommended closure of the PAC, and the council supported a 6-month extension to the nonprofit to run that. And as we're approaching the end of that 6 months, we felt that although we're not ready with an agreement, that the community and the council needed to have a discussion about where we are and have that to be more transparent and give that update and allow opportunity for the community and council to weigh in just where we are at this step. And there's also a second recommendation this evening, and that's to give the committee the option to bypass the committee with the full agreement. I want to be clear that staff's not advocating for that position, but Terrell in his presentation will go through what could be perceived as the advantages to doing that, but there's also some disadvantages to doing that as well. So again, we wanted to have that conversation with the committee and with the community this evening. But with what we found out through the RFP process, staff is actually advocating that this is one of those times where it's more important to go slow so that we can later go fast. We're finding that there is a lot of information that we as a city and what the operator may not know, and we really want to get the best agreement for the community as we look to keep this facility open. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Harrison.
Good evening, Chair Ramirez, committee members. As Ms. Golden explained, I'm going to talk to you about our agreement or our proposed agreement with Venue Tech. This is just a little background, a little history about the Performing Arts Center. It opened in 1968. We actually started working with the PAC Corporation in the year 2000. And then for the last 3 fiscal years, you could see the subsidy that the city of Oxnard has subsidized, the highest being in the last 3 years, 2017 to 18. The present management agreement of the Performing Arts Center ends December 31st, 2019. That is the agreement for the last 6 months that you went ahead and approved, and for the PAC Corporation to manage it. Ms. Golden actually brought that up. On the 23rd of July 2019, we went ahead and we talked to community members. This was an opportunity to get feedback from the community and from others to say, what do they want in the PAC? What do they want in an operator to go ahead and operate the Performing Arts Center? On August 5th, the proposal was released. We actually had four groups apply. One of them withdrew, and the three that you see before you are the groups that went ahead and submitted a proposal to us. After consideration, two of those were brought back, and Venue Tech was actually selected. The reason why we selected Venue Tech is because Venue Tech, this is exactly what they do. They manage government facilities, and they have 30 years of experience actually doing that. As you could see, just within California, these are 5 municipal performing arts facilities that they manage. Hold on. As a sample of the programming and the people that they have, assuming these are the types of groups that would actually use the big auditorium. This is a variety of groups that they have. You could see it's a wide selection, and we do have more groups that they go ahead and that they facilitated with different concerts and things. What's important is that, and what we need in to operate the Performing Arts Center, these are the things that Venue Tech provide, and we believe that are really important. But let me make an emphasis on operating budgets and financial reporting, which is number 2. And number 3, policies, marketing plans, programming, and reporting, which is number 3. And all these services are critical, but those are just 2 of them that I would like to point out to you. The outstanding items that we still need to work through with Venue Tech are 1 through 5, emphasizing the transition plan and the budget. And number 5, reestablishing the relationships with the clients that we had in 2020. I know when we said that we were going to shut down the Performing Arts Center, there was a lot of people who were really upset who actually rely and use the Performing Arts Center. And we actually had to have some cancellations. We think that it's important that Venue Tech reestablish those relationships with our community members and the people outside of our community who use our Performing Arts Center. All right. So Ms. Golden actually brought this up to you, the option to bypass committee. We are not recommending the option to bypass committee. What we're saying is it is an option to you to bypass the committee. And we do believe that there is going to be some downtime transitioning from the PAC Corporation into Venue Tech, but we believe by bypassing committee, it could shorten that transition. And we believe that we're going to be able to expedite the formal agreement process. The financial impact, there is, here's all the, where we would actually have to get the money from would be Measure O. And there is no current budget for this fiscal year. So that's why we would have to get the money for Measure O. We do not have a budget to operate the Performing Arts Center. And so our recommendation is to enter in a 3-year agreement with Venue Tech, as well as an option for an extension. Now, it does say the three-year terms. That is a mistake. We're still in negotiation on what the extension would be. And then we're also looking for direction to see if this committee would recommend it to be bypassed and to go directly to full council. Are there any questions?
I'd like to, well, if my colleagues here would ask questions to clarify, then we have quite a few speakers. I'd like to hear their questions so that we can get that. Do you have a question, Councilman Madrigal?
I'll wait for after the speakers.
How about you? Okay, thank you very much. So let's go to the speakers, and I will call them in the order that they gave the card to the city clerk, and everybody will have 3 minutes. So the first speaker is Mark Spellman, to be followed by Liz Plasencia.
Good evening, Chairman Ramirez and committee members. My name is Mark Spellman. I'm a loyal member of the Oxnard business community, and I'm here on behalf of Laser Broadcasting Corp. And we're a minority-owned, operated media company, and we're headquartered right here in Oxnard. That's where I've lived and worked in the past 7 years here. And I'm proud to work with a company that has invested in the Oxnard community for almost 30 years. When Laser found out that the city was closing the PAC, our company stepped up because we knew how important this cultural center is to our community. And I'm still unsure why Venue Tech was chosen, especially after I saw this presentation, because they're talking about the budgets, which when I heard about the RFP process, we couldn't respond to the items because they weren't even clear on what the responsibility was of the city. Yet, I was under the impression with the RFP process that there was not going to be any cost to the city. We went in thinking, you just take care of your capital improvement projects, and we will take care of the rest. We will formulate a budget once we can determine what your costs are. We didn't have line items. We couldn't really figure out exactly what the costs were because the city was charging a lot of things that had nothing to do with programming. So Venue Tech, they're not a local entity, and they have a history of asking for management fees, whereas Laser, again, is not asking for fees. Furthermore, I've learned that Venue Tech does not have a clean record. I don't see in my notes that they've had a successful run with 5 cities in California, and I could talk about that later. They've had some problems with several cities that they operate in. I'm not sure if you've done your homework, but I hope so. And who within this choice is going to take care of the nonprofits? Do they understand the importance of the local affiliation Oxnard has with the nonprofit service providers that care so deeply about the PAC? The bottom line is, how can an outside party better serve the community than a local organization that is community-driven and embedded within the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Liz Plasencia, to be followed by Jackie Tedeschi.
Liz is on the way.
Okay, so we'll call her when she arrives. Jackie Tedeschi. Oh, she did? Liz Plasencia, to be followed by Jackie Tedeschi. You have 3 minutes, Ms. Plasencia.
Thank you. Good evening. I've been watching you on my way here. Well, just to follow up with what Mark Spellman had to say, my name is Liz Plasencia, Director of Operations for Laser Broadcasting. And what I wanted to say is there has been a misconception of Laser Broadcasting wanting to take on this project. It's, oh, they're only going to do Spanish. That is not true. They only know how to handle the Hispanic. That is not true. And what I wanted to let those misconceptions be known is that we have promoted events, both here in Oxnard and throughout several theaters and larger venues throughout California and in Reno. We have done events specifically at the PAC, at the Arlington Santa Barbara Bowl, Fox Theater in Riverside, Fox Theater in Bakersfield, and many more to name. And throughout our relationships throughout the last 28 years, we have also co-promoted with several large promoters such as AEG, Live Nation, and Nederlander, as well as various local promoters at each one of our markets that we work at. So what that gives us is gives us that relationship to work with those people like AEG, Nederlander, and Live Nation to be able to provide additional type of events to bring to the PAC. So it's not just that we're here to bring regional Mexican music to the city, but in fact, using our relationships to bring in a variety and bring in plays and bring in Broadway type shows. Other than that, you know, again, they are not local. We are local, and as Mark mentioned, we were willing to do this without a management fee because we have invested in the community of Oxnard for so many years that we felt it was our duty to come up and step up and take this within the community and keep it going. So if anyone has more heart, it would be someone who's been in this community for 30 years working, and my father, the president of the company, has been living here for about 50 years, so he's invested his time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jackie Tedeschi, to be followed by Michael Doty.
Good evening, committee members. A little bit of background. Okay, I am a South Bank resident right now and came up here about 26 years ago. But when I lived in the San Fernando Valley in Chatsworth, my husband and various family members, we used to come up and go to the PAC, even when we lived in Canoga Park before Chatsworth. And we'd come up and go to the PAC to many of the items that were nonprofit. In fact, a long time ago, before gray hair and wrinkles, okay, we would come up and then we'd also then go to the lobster trap. So that's a long time ago. But anyway, so I am worried about the nonprofits because they are a part of Oxnard, no matter where you live in Oxnard, north, south, east, and west. And also now as the chair of the 2019 INCO Interneighborhood Council Organization, why haven't any of the members that are bidding on the PAC, maybe it's out of order, but why haven't they come to the INCO and gave a presentation? Because all the neighborhoods in Oxnard are members of the INCO, and it would give good response, positive and negative, to the various people that are applying for the venue. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Michael Doty, followed by Lorraine Efris.
Good evening. My name is Mike Doty. I'm a member of the board of directors for the PAC. When I first joined the PAC board in July of 2018, I had absolutely no knowledge of its past history. I was surprised to learn we had no real control over the operation of the facility, but could speak our minds all we wanted. In a way, we were no more than an ornament on a mantelpiece. We were gearing up for both fundraising activities and ideas on programming when, in May, we learned to our dismay that the city wanted to close the PAC on June 30th. Following a public outcry, the city backtracked somewhat, keeping the facility open until December 31st. We thank you for that extension because it gave us our first real opportunity to actually operate the PAC. As we speak today, our ultra-talented staff at the PAC is in a position to all but break even financially, and this in only 4 months. As the RFP process ran its course, I reverted to my graduate school experience in digging for more information. That training taught me to never accept as gospel information from a single source. If collaborating evidence came from several sources, then the information was in a better position to be trustworthy. Have you done your research? As a past teacher, I should say, have you done your homework? Through the use of Google, much evidence is easy to find, and it only takes a few minutes, literally. I urge you to be restless in searching and to ask plenty of questions. We, the board, stand ready to assist whoever is chosen to manage the PAC. Please do not overlook us. By the way, we do not see any reference to the board in the city's report on the RFP. Why is this? Thank you.
Lorraine Efros to be followed by Tom Scharf, and then following Tom Scharf, Ana Silva.
Good evening. I am a almost 30-year resident of the city of Oxnard, and one of the first things I ever did when I got here was to patronize the PAC. At that time, they had Broadway shows, and I was like, wow, I must have really lucked out to come and see. I remember I saw Cabaret. It was a fantastic production, and I don't know, one day they just disappeared. But I've still continued to patronize the PAC all of these years, and I consider it to be the heart of the city because the city is very balkanized. It has developed in a balkanized way, and there really is no center. They keep saying that downtown one day is going to be the center, but it never has been. But the PAC really is the center, and it serves all aspects of the community, socioeconomic levels, ethnics, etc. And I really, really want to see it succeed. If we need a manager, I want to make sure that whoever gets this, and everybody said, you know, you need to do your homework. I have 10 questions here. I just want to make sure whatever deal a nonprofit or profit-making organization gets, it's as good a deal as we gave the operator of the golf course, because I consider the PAC a lot more important to the community than the golf course. And the golf course, as far as I'm concerned, got a really good deal with management fees and transitional fees. Now, this is a very sparse presentation, so I would like to know how we're going to handle the capital improvements. The city doesn't have money for this. Is this going to be a huge capital campaign? Are we going to suddenly get some influx grants or what have you? Have we seen any of the operations in person? Have we gone to any of these other places that Venue Tech operates and seen them in action? Has Venue Tech come down here and actually toured the place? Are they going to be responsible just for the auditorium or for the entire facility and all the meeting rooms? And I know everyone's concerned about the not-for-profits, so that would be a big question. Will the relationship be the same as it is with the community now, or will it be a distant operator? Will they have a headquarters here in Oxnard, or will they be operating from someplace else? Where are they actually from? And the budget updates for Oxnard, can they be updated or amended mid-year if, in fact, we decide to go forward with this operator and we don't have any transition fees or any budget allocations in the budget now after January 1st? How would we handle that in order to sign a contract? Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just say the staff is writing the questions down so we can have a response. Thank you. Tom Scharf to be followed by Ana Silva.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for hearing me, council members. My name is Tom Scharf. I've been a member of the community for over 40 years. I was stationed here when I was in the Navy, and I've stayed here because of the climate primarily. It's beautiful, this paradise. And my occupations are I'm an electrical engineer, I'm a sound engineer, and I'm a theater technician for the Oxnard High School District. My concerns are mainly, I don't want to say I want to kick Venue Tech to the curb, but mainly I've done some research on my own and looked at their website online and their theaters. They booked a lot of big names, but haven't seen a lot of small names on their venue list, and their event calendars that are available online are very sparse. They're averaging 2 events per month over the next 6 months in the 2 theaters that were available, which was the Downey Theater and the Heritage Theater in Campbell, California. The other 2 that I tried to look at, Vacaville and San Ramon, the web pages were not available. So I have no idea what's going on with those. That's my first concern. My next concern has to do with that Venue Tech seems to manage theaters, and I'm not sure what their places are that are called performing arts centers, but because I want to share, this is one of Lorraine's comments, is to share my concern about the treatment of the PAC, our OPAC, as a convention center, not just a performing arts center, but convention center. All the convention rooms and the meeting rooms, and relative to nonprofits and local groups that need to use and have been using the facility for decades. And now everybody's kind of up in the air about what are we going to do now? And my next concern has to do is another concern that everybody seems to have is what are the rates going to do? What's going to happen after this company gets awarded? Because as I understand, no, the rates have not been negotiated yet. And so I would like to encourage this committee and the council to consider one of the other two people on the RFPs that submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Ana Silva, to be followed by Gary Blum, and then Vince Stewart.
Good evening. I'm reading this on behalf of the Ventura County Arts Council, and you do have a copy in front of you. To the City Council members on the Community Services Committee, greetings and thank you for the work that you do. These comments come from Craig Rosen, the Development Director of the Ventura County Arts Council, who asked me to read them tonight. Major grant deadlines from the California Arts Council have created a schedule conflict for Mr. Rosen, who wanted to attend. Speaking of the arts grants and the arts funding, we all know this is a recurring theme, often with unhappy endings for arts and culture organizations in this city and in our county. If some of you are thinking, I haven't heard from the Ventura County Arts Council before, I want to emphasize that support and advocacy are at the heart of our mission, and we are refocusing our efforts to better serve groups like the PAC. In my work as development director, I have partnered with numerous art organizations in the county, helping them write grants or teaming up on projects. I've written grants that have brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars in my 5 years at the Ventura County Arts Council, quadrupling our budget. I've seen the capacity struggles that so many of our county arts and cultural nonprofits face. We share those. However, in the case of the PAC, I have been impressed by the new leadership, many of the recent programs they've introduced, and what I recognize as a true desire and competency to bring success from within. When the Ventura Museum ran into trouble, they went to the city and county government for help and got it. Help was offered in part because a dedicated and talented leader was brought in to right the ship. Oxnard, you have such people in your midst who already made a presentation to take over management of this historic and important facility. I stand fully behind their application and respectfully ask this committee to slow down the decision and reconsider their bid while taking a closer look at the outside company being recommended for this contract, as valid concerns about their competency have been raised. Most of all, let's see the success happen locally and help make that happen. The Ventura County Arts Council will work with the existing nonprofit at the PAC to make sure new grant funds come in and to assist in other areas of their development. You have my word on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Gary Blum, to be followed by Vince Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Gary Blum. I'm the current chairman of the Oxnard Performing Arts Centers Corporation. I've been on the board about 20 years, and I'm actually not proud to say that because the vast majority of that was me sitting there waiting for something to happen. Just so you know, I was asked to be on the board by one of our other fellow board members, Irma Lopez. She said, Gary, we need to have downtown plugged into the Performing Arts Center. It's, obviously the Performing Arts Center is in the middle of a residential area. The downtown can benefit from the success of that. So I said, Irma, I'm on board. And so I did that 20-some years ago. and I have gone to, I think, almost every single meeting. I don't think I've ever missed one. Those meetings were primarily run by either city council people or city staff. The private people that were on the board were never engaged to do anything. And so now, fast track to a few years ago when we had a new city manager and Chelsea Reynolds was brought in as our director, we started really doing things. But Chelsea was a city employee. She was not an employee of the Performing Arts Center. She was a general manager of the Performing Arts Center, not an executive director of the nonprofit. So things may not have gone as quickly as we wanted, but I think Chelsea did some incredible things there, and I hated to see that being eclipsed by her being let go by the city and their budget issues. We were fortunate to bring on Carolyn Mullen as our executive director and an employee to the nonprofit. We were able to implement many things that Chelsea had started and continue on. I've been contacted, or Event Tech contacted me once. I had a great conversation with them. I respect that company and what they do in communities. They come in, they take performing arts centers that are not doing well, or the city does not have the staff resources to properly manage them, and they come in and they use a format and a formula to do that. And I understand that market, but none of their facilities are of the scale of the Oxnard Performing Arts Center. I've done some extensive research, as well as many of our board members. You actually have to pay through some paywalls to get to more articles. You can't just do it for free. You actually, if you want to find out more, you've got to pay a little money. And they have actually approached us to partner with us. They said they don't like to come into a community that doesn't want them. So that's why I did all that research, and our other board members did that research. I could not find one facility that I was impressed with. Like, wow, they're doing a great job there. When you saw those performers, that was cumulative amongst all of the venues, not just one venue. It was pretty lackluster, and that's the problem with the PAC, is it's been lackluster. I hear it every day from people in the community when they say, you're on that board, why isn't it bringing in more in the community? And that's my passion, that we do more. We have to bring in more people for tourism. We have to bring in more people for our restaurants and bars throughout the city, and I really think that the PAC, our PAC proposal could make that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vince Stewart, to be followed by Jack Villa, to be followed by Lynn Schulman. Mr. Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Vincent Stewart, and I am a member of the Board of Directors for the Performing Arts Center. And I won't rehash some of the things that have already been said, but I do have some concerns from the presentation that I saw tonight, and that is that we talked about the subsidy for the Performing Arts Center, but nowhere in there did I see the numbers that the Performing Arts Center does bring in revenue, and that revenue is back before July, was sent back to the city. And so that all was incorporated in the money that we received. And so it doesn't give a real, true indication of what was really going on at the Performing Arts Center in those numbers. It just shows that the money that came from the city to us, but that money also included the money that we had sent over to the city budget that came back to us. So, it's not clear there. Some of the other issues I saw with the presentation was, again, we didn't address the nonprofits. I mean, this is a community center, and so it's about the community, and that's the part that I don't see. I understand that Venue Tech is good at handling auditoriums, and that's fine, but they don't talk about handling, and I don't see anything in their experience of how they handle, the other rooms that make up the community. And so that's really important. And so I just wanted to bring out those few remarks. I won't rehash what has already been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do feel like we should take it kind of slow so that we don't rush to a decision, but we make a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schulman Mr. Villa, to be followed by Lynn Schulman, and then Douglas Brooks.
Yes, good evening. My name is Jack Villa. I am the chair to the Hobson Park East, and that is the neighborhood in which the performing arts sits. And our neighborhood is very interested in what becomes of the performing arts. It's the center of our neighborhood, and if that does well, our neighborhood will do well. We want our park to do well, that's adjacent to it. And it's very important to our neighborhood, so I suggest to the council that they take their time. I noticed in the presentation that the other venues that Venue Tech handles, they're not community centers. They're just theaters, and most of those theaters are small theaters. And I would like this to be a community center where it serves the elderly programs, youth programs, art programs, music programs, and somewhere there's an outlet for the community where it serves the community. I understand Venue Tech's a profit organization, which is fine. I'm all for companies making money, but I hope if the council chooses Venue Tech, that they're going to give back to the community and not gouge the community, and work with the neighborhoods, work with the nonprofits, programming that reflects the diversity of Oxnard. And when I was small, let's see, I was probably, before I was 10 years old, I was going to the community center before even the theater was up. And I remember going in summer to go there in the, for art programs, music programs. As a teen, I would go use the Oxnard room. They would have dances there for teens. That's not there. And I hope whoever takes it over is going to serve the public, not just there to make money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schulman, to be followed by Douglas Brooks, and then Lauren Cagle, I think.
Yeah, Chairman Ramirez and members of the committee, I'm Len Schulman, a member of the PAC Board of Directors. I'd like to remind you of the responsibility you have in recommending to the full City Council the best choice as operators for the PAC to return it to the cultural and entertainment complex it was meant to be after doing your own research, not just passing on the word of others. The PAC is in the sorry condition we find it in today because of many years of poor operation by incompetent Oxnard City employees who were in complete control of the facility. It is true that the Board of Directors of the PAC Corporation signed an agreement with the city 20 years ago to be the operators, but in name only, as all aspects of the operation were held in the hands of city employees, with the PAC Corporation Board and its employees being simply caretakers of the decision made by the city's employed director and staff. The choice was made to turn the facility into a rental house with little or no input from the board that was made up of 2 city council members appointed by the mayor and a succession of city managers, all that had no background in theater operation or time to devote to the PAC. The other members were 3 volunteer individuals. Even as a rental house, the board of directors had no input into the schedule of rental fees or who was eligible to use the facility free of charge, and all money coming in, regardless of the source, went into the Oxnard General Fund. When our present city manager, saddled with the difficult chore of coming up with a city budget with insufficient funds, not even knowing he was a member of the PAC Board of Directors, chose to close the PAC facility, and it was only because of a public outcry from people that recognized what the loss of our last house of culture in Oxnard would mean. It was decided to go out for bids to find an operator, and the PAC Board of Directors were finally allowed to take charge of the facility from July 1st through December 31st of this year by signing a new agreement with minimum funds and the requirement to make no contracts or plans for 2020 and to cancel any in existence. You will find that we took up the challenge and within this short time hired an excellent managing director, Carolyn Mullen, put together and operated several successful events, and found an excellent partner to work with us if we were to continue operation of the PAC as it was meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks, to be followed by Lauren Cagle, to be followed by Pat Brown.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and City Council members. My name is Douglas Brooks, and I'm here representing Oh My Theater, the resident theater company at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center. I'm the 2-time elected treasurer for Oh My Theater and a parent volunteer for the last 3.5 years. We have a show coming up, and we are scheduled in January. We have 4 shows, coming up in January, and we are really looking forward to this. We've got 60+ kids, not including the volunteers, that are really looking forward and working their hardest, training every week for this production coming up in January. And we are asking tonight that the council slow down the decision-making so that these children can make their performance, that these children that have worked every night for weeks to learn their lines, rehearse their performances, to get dressed up, to see the smiles on their face is just incredible. And I would ask that you allow this to go slow, let the process culminate in its own natural state without making fast decisions, if you will. And I would like to leave you with this flyer if the council will accept it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lauren Cagle, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Pat Brown, to be followed by Duranda Martin.
That's okay, it's Lauren Cagle.
Cagle,
That's
thank
okay.
you.
Good evening, my name is Lauren Cagle, and I am the Assistant Director to Oh My Theater also with Doug. And I'm here representing 60 children that we have that are practicing their play right now over at the OPAC. They're with the director who's poured her heart and soul out to this nonprofit organization. And I wanted to read something that she had came up with, and I wanted to share this with you. Despite all of the meetings that took place regarding the closure of the OPAC in May and June, Oh My Theater already invested thousands of dollars into our fall-winter production of Disney's Frozen Jr., with no success trying to relocate with such short notice. Our only remaining hope is to immediately secure a contract with whomever is in charge of the OPAC at the start of the new year. Considering our Tech Week and performances are slated to begin the second week of January, you can imagine the grave concerns weighing on our staff, the volunteer team, all 60-plus kids that are involved, and the families who have already invested thousands of combined hours to the season. We have already been advertising, just like Doug said, and doing field trips amongst the community for Oxnard to be attending these performances. The original timeline was originally shifted. We were supposed to know who was running the facility by the end of October, and now we don't know anybody that's doing it now in December. We want to know why this process is being rushed. We were just asking if there's any way to extend the contract with a nonprofit or another 2 months to decide and allow February or January and February events to be booked, because it's not only including the nonprofit of Oh My Theater, but it's also other community events, the annual Martin Luther King celebration, Jehovah's Witness conventions, and others. We need a secure home in Oxnard for the Oxnard Musical Youth Theater Corporation, established and maintained by local volunteer residents to meet the affordable and accessible needs of our future performing artists. Please help us ensure that we have a local venue to continue our rehearsals and to provide free this January. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pat Brown, and then Duranda Martin, and my last speaker is Arturo Guido.
I remember it must have been about 4 or 5 months ago. There was a little meeting at the PAC in the big conference room, and they split us up into round tables. You just pick a round table you wanted to go to, and then the people at each table then had to put together some ideas and so forth. We had a certain amount of time to work on it. I ended up at a table with 2 people from New York City who had been entertainers there and had worked on productions and so forth there. And they had just moved here and were staying with the in-laws. And they were very interested in what we had to work with and thought that they might be able to help us. I didn't keep any contact information from them, but I know that the people that were putting this question and answer thing together, yes, I'm sure that they did contact him. If not, they really missed the boat. I get the feeling from the comments that have been made this evening, taking all of them in together, is that there is a problem between the board and the person who is at the present time in charge. And it's not that they just want to drag their feet at all, it's that they want to do things right in the first place. And I think somebody is trying to get this off their back, to rush through this and give it to somebody so that they can step aside and they don't have to be bothered with it anymore. I get that feeling. That's the way it appears. And I think that we should take it slower and work these things out, because it sounds to me like there's some kind of a problem with maybe jealousy, attitude of some sort. Something fishy is going on, and something has to be done before we get this new group in, because then it's just going to get worse, because they're going to have pressure that they have to deal with and so forth. And so it's all going to come back to haunt them in the end. So might as well take their time, get it organized, get it together, forgive each other for whatever's, and let's get this show on the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Duranda Martin, and my last speaker is Arturo Guido. If anyone else would like to speak, please fill out a card, and we'll hear from you. Thank you.
Board Member Duranda Martin, and I'm here right now to speak on behalf of, or to read a statement on behalf of Manny Herrera. Madam Chair, members of the committee and city staff, my name is Manuel Herrera. I'm on the board of directors of the Oxnard Performing Arts Center, and I'm also the founder of Citizens for a Better Oxnard. As we all know, the PAC was originally scheduled to close in October, but due to extreme pressure from the community, the PAC was allowed to remain open until December with a plan to seek a permanent operator who will then manage the facilities. Who you end up choosing, and the process used to pick the management group will dictate whether the PAC will succeed or not. Having said that, I would like to pose a few questions and or suggestions that I hope you as a committee member will ask and will get answers to. One, as a committee member, were you able to view the application of all the candidates so that you can compare one applicant with another? Or are you simply going to take staff's recommendations without knowing the full qualifications of the other applicants? I ask this with all due respect to the staff. The second, has a complete background check been done on the vendor that the staff is recommending? If so, are there any questions or concerns that this committee needs to be aware of before making their decision? The reason I ask this is because we do not need our city officials to pick an operator now, only to then be surprised later due to information that was never disclosed. I have seen this happen too many times within other cities, and I don't want this to happen to us. I trust that at the end of the day, our city council as a whole will make the right decision in choosing the future operator of the PAC, which in turn will dictate whether the Oxnard Performing Arts Center succeeds or not. Please know that we are looking forward with open arms to working in conjunction with our new operator, whomever it may be. Please also remember that whatever decision you make, we will all have to live with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker, Arturo Guido.
Good evening, council members. My name is Arturo. And, well, yes, we've heard all the statements and everything about the situation with the venue tech, the RFP, the board, all that stuff. And I see that people like Gary has been on, Gary Blum has been on a chair, like a worker for the PAC for a long time. He said about 20 years. And all of a sudden we get, it seems like we get a new manager or something's going on with the PAC. And all of a sudden we were told in the summer that it's going to close. And so like they gave us time from July to December to try to make it better or however you want to call it. And that is very little time compared to 20 years. I mean, come on. And then we're going to decide already to get venue tech all of a sudden. I think that since we had all this time, we should give it time before we make abrupt decisions. And it seemed like with this venue tech, they can stay there for like 3 years, and then 3 years after that, and then 3 years after that, or is it 2 and 2 and 2? And leaves the community out of making any more decisions. So what do you call it? So we should, take our time. So far, it seems like the community has been, if you want to call it, upping the pack, like, filling it with a lot of events, and we can do more. I mean, with just this little time, we've done a lot of events, and now we have some coming up in January, and now we have more time to do more events. It seems like the community has pretty much, like, if you want to call it, got this, and so if we are going to move forward with getting another company like VenueTech, perhaps VenueTech is not the right choice. Why don't we just give it more time to look at our other options besides VenueTech? A company that will work with the community, and we can make a better decision about it and come out with a better outcome for the PAC, the community, and for everybody else, pretty much the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Guido is the last speaker, unless someone else wants to put a card in. If you haven't spoken before. Well, if I'm going to let you speak, Ms. Martin, because you spoke on behalf of someone else. So if you want to say something, yeah. But I'll need you to put in another card when you finish. When you finish speaking. Go ahead and speak, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever decision you make and whoever you decide will run the auditorium part, I still think that the PAC would best serve the community service or the community center segment of the PAC. That's just really I wanted to say. Whoever you choose, I think they should be at least kept to serve the community. They are the best. They know the PAC. They know the PAC facility. They know the community. They are the Oxnard community. So whoever you choose, if it's not given to the PAC and Sterling, or the board in Sterling, at least keep the PAC in running the community aspect of it, of the entire PAC, with whatever professional management company you choose. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have quite a few questions. Mr. Harrison.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to remember just a few of the things or just try to remember all the things that people have said. And I'm sure that Ashley, as well as Jason, also took notes. But I want to address the nonprofits and them actually working with nonprofits. Let's start off with our nonprofit board. VenueTech has advise nonprofit boards. They look forward to actually working with our nonprofit board. VenueTech has to listen to our community as well, and who best represents our community than our current nonprofit board. They have to figure out what type of programming, the style of programming, what type of events to go ahead and bring in. They're starting with a clean slate. So what best to work with the community, our nonprofit board, as well as staff. As far as the rest of the comments about the nonprofits, who's going to take care of the nonprofits? I know that currently right now, I do believe that there's a rental credits program in place. That is the same type of process for nonprofits that VenueTech does have. So there's that similarity. As far as working with room rentals and things like that, in Vacaville and Campbell, VenueTech works with staff, not just in the theater, but on room rentals also. Also there was a comment on the performers, and it was a combined amount of performers on all the facilities that they have. There are plenty of performers that we did not list up there that they, Venue Tech goes ahead and they work with. Also today in a conversation, they also brought up that they do work with outside promotion companies to go ahead and bring in plenty of different performers that will work well inside of our community and other communities, appreciating the diversity that we have in ours. Now, I know I forgot probably some of the questions, but those are some things that actually stand out to me.
And a couple things that I'd like to hit on, primarily the references and have we done our homework and have you done your homework? We have not run a full background check on Venue Tech nor their employees. They're not our employees. This is a contract management where we've done reference checks. We've called the people that they've worked with, even some of the ones that people have brought forward that those company or those cities aren't happy. We have good references. So Vacaville, for example, has given a glowing reference of Venue Tech. We've done a lot of the online research that everyone else has and have seen a lot of the articles. We did not pay for any of the background. So to Gary's point of you have to pay for some of that, we did not go that far, but we've done our homework. We've questioned Venue Tech on things that we've found online. We've called the cities where there might be something bad in the press to hear their side of the story. And just like all of you that would want the same courtesy, there's always two sides to a story. Venue Tech, one of the things of why you don't see good press on Venue Tech, they're not like a Live Nation that they brand the company as their own or they brand a theater as their own. So when something good happens at a theater that they operate, it's the city that gets the credit for that. It's not Venue Tech that gets the credit for that. But when something bad happens, it is Venue Tech that gets the credit for that. So that's an interesting dynamic that some of the bigger theaters don't have. But there's always going to be something that we miss even when we hire our own employees or when we contract. You can't find everything, but we are confident in the reference checks that we've done to ask those hard questions, to get answers from them on that. And that is part of when a full contract comes to council that the council can also look deeper into, but we are confident in the reference checks that we have done. Another thing that I wanted to address, Lorraine asked a lot of questions. I think I got a lot of them on here. In terms of capital improvements, the only capital improvements we have are those which were approved in the capital improvement program that council approved in 2019. So there are a few repairs in there, but we know that there are more repairs than what has been budgeted so far in the capital improvement program. As far as staffing, Venue Tech's model is that they do have on-site staffing. It's a ramp up depending on when they hire and the training and it comes in and the programming that happens. So that's not necessarily a stable number of they know they're always going to have 2 employees or they're going to have 6 employees. And that's something, and that does tie into the budget as well, but they would have presence on site. It's not a satellite where it's somebody from that just comes in here and there. In terms of setting fees, Terrell touched on this a little bit, at least with the nonprofits, but one of the things that even when Chelsea was here, that the nonprofit board and Chelsea as staff were talking about was the need to reevaluate the fees and set fees and to look at that. And that is something that whether the operator would have been Venue Tech or another that we're recommending to the committee and council, that freedom needs to be with the operator who knows the market better than we know the market, but that is something that still the city would be involved in setting fees and looking at the overall industry standard for fees in our market, really more than an industry standard of what those fees would be. But we understand, as does Venue Tech, the importance of this being a community center. But oftentimes with community centers, that comes at a price, whether that's the rental program that OPAC currently uses and that the city used for the nonprofits or not, but somebody pays for that one way or another. And it's hard for a council and staff to put a price on that importance because it is very important, and it is, to what Lorraine said, the heart of the city. And in terms of that, Venue Tech does not operate centers to this scale. Terrell touched on that a little bit, that in Campbell and Vacaville, the theaters are part of a larger complex. So they're not the direct managers and there's not a contract for them to manage the other, but they do interface with the city and do that. But as a company, they have the experience in operating true convention centers. So Visalia, that is a convention center, they have experience within their company that was the operator of the Visalia Convention Center. And one of the other big things that I want to clear up is when staff is saying that we need to slow down to go fast, the current contract with OPAC, as well as the funding, ends December 31st, 2019. So when staff is saying you have to slow down to go fast and that we need to take our time to vet this, the contract ends December 31st. That does not mean that OPAC stays on longer than that. That does not mean, and Lorraine asked this question as well about the budget, there is only the appropriation of the $410,000, which council did in June, to take them through December 31st of 2019. So when we're saying slow down to go fast, staff is meaning that and trying to figure out what money do we have to put towards Venue Tech or any other contract? What other needs are there at the site? Because we have a partial listing, which the OPAC has helped put together in the past, not in any recent discussions of needs, both capital improvement as well as minor repairs that the site needs. But that's all funding that's not identified in your current fiscal year budget. And that all does come with a cost. And we don't want the community or the council to go into this with the idea that we know exactly how much this is going to cost. Programming takes money. The OPAC knows that best. It does take money, but you also have the ability to make revenue with that programming. And that's one other thing that I believe it was Mr. Stewart that brought up, that the numbers in the presentation, that's not a fair representation. Those are actually the net subsidy from the city. So that is taking into account the expenditures and the revenues, and then what we call the general fund transfer in and out. That was the money that was needed to fill the gap between the expenses and revenue. So that actually is the extra money on top of where they didn't break even on that. And I agree with their assessment that in the model that was set up between OPAC and the city, it was hard to fundraise, but they were allowed to fundraise to help close that gap. But yes, that money, what it would have done if they fundraised, would have closed all those subsidy numbers that you saw up in the presentation. If I've missed a few, please let me know and I can go through that, and I'll keep looking through my notes on that.
Thank you. So I'll let my colleagues here ask questions. I have a number of questions also. Councilman?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for everyone that was here and cares so much about the PAC. Looking at this, and just in a short period of time, this weekend that I had, I know that there's been issues with Venue Tech in Vacaville and Downey at the current locations that they have. Obviously, it was stated that there's two sides to every story, and I understand that, but there's being on council, I know there's always a third side to the story, which is the truth. And, between both stories, it's kind of hard to see on one perspective. I understand completely why the city of Vacaville would give a glowing recommendation to Venue Tech, because if it's true of what is online about Vacaville, then it's just horrible what's online concerning Venue Tech in Vacaville. As far as Downey, it could be stated it was an accident, but at the same time, it is something that could happen here as well. And it's something that could easily happen here because, the PAC isn't necessarily in the best of conditions. So I know it's something that can happen here. I'm not too sold because I also read into other cities who did not renew contracts or separated contracts with Venue Tech, being the city of Stockton and the city of Vallejo. Both of them, for whatever reason, decided not to stick with Venue Tech. And ultimately, I get that, and I'm really scared about the subsidy. Same reason why I voted no on the golf course is the same reason why even whatever happens at the committee level or at the council level, my answer would still be no for Venue Tech. I think it's, the statement was it takes money to make money, which is true. But at the same time, it's the same money that we were complaining about with what we currently had. We're handing over the keys without knowing all the repercussions, and that is something that I'm not willing to do, even though I completely understand the aspect of if we wait up here and bicker away, then, you know, at the same time, the PAC is going to be closed until we settle on something. So that's something we need to look at as a committee and as a council, that, you know, ultimately we do need to come to an agreement, because at the end of the day, while we bicker away, the Performing Arts Center will probably be closed for a while we settle on whatever it is that we're going to settle with.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
Thank you to all the speakers and to staff for the report. I do have some concerns. Ms. Golden, you did say that we allocated $410,000 for until December 31st. Has that money been spent? Do we anticipate we're going to need additional money? How is the operator doing now when it comes to maintaining that budget?
I have that staff report with me, so let me pull what the payment schedule was on that, but it was 410, and then there was some payback provision, not payback provisions, but let me look at the provisions and I'll get back to you on that. The new allocations that we came to council with, I believe both in July and September, that was for the previous fiscal year of overages that they had within that 18-19 budget. That wasn't related to OPAC's operation of the 410,000. But I'll look through that while you ask some other questions.
Okay. So, and also, in regards to the operator that is being recommended, are the other cities subsidizing them?
Yes.
So every single city that they have contracts under, they're being subsidized.
That is correct. So the management fee, they do a management fee system, not an incentive-based systems. But so in that, any money they make goes back to the city. But there's very few, especially when you have community center spaces like we do here, that you have the money, that it all equals out. The subsidies range, I think in the report we had the range, the highest one currently is $700,000 as their subsidy. I think the lowest is in the low 100,000s, but with where we are today, we do not have, and that's why you don't see a number in the staff report today of what that subsidy would be. We have too many unanswered questions of the programming. It is very unusual that anyone would walk into a theater with no programming slated, and we knew that that's what we were setting up in the RFP when we closed it down. But for a budget to be developed when you have this upfront cost of a management fee but no programming to offset that expense, we're trying to work through some of those details a bit more and to look at some of the programs that were scheduled for 2020 to see where do we think we could bring some revenue back into the site. But yes, every site requires a subsidy that they manage.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm curious to see if we went ahead and approved the 410,000 and how, you know, the nonprofit is doing with their budget at this time. And thank you for your comments. I greatly appreciate the transparency and all the information that you're giving us. I'm a bit hesitant to go ahead and say, you know, that, you know, I guess, how can I say this? If we're going to be subsidizing anyways, I think it kind of defeats the purpose of us trying to get an operator. Because we have a PAC board that seems to be running the PAC. And we are, you know, and I appreciate all the time that is being spent. But my thought process was, and maybe I missed something when we were being told this, my thought process, and I guess I was, you know, trying to look at the bright side of this, was we were going to get an operator to come in, and I did expect some subsidy, but I've got to tell you, I didn't expect it to be I expected it to be less than 400,000, and that's kind of what I was thinking. And now I'm kind of, wondering what it is that we're exactly doing. If we're going to be subsidizing, and that's exactly what I have up on my screen here. If we're going to be subsidizing, and we've already reduced the subsidy to the new board and the PAC that is being ran, and we're going to give it up to an operator for not much more less, I am not sure exactly. I don't know what we're doing, is my question.
And maybe it's worth having, Carolyn's here that would know the budget better than we are and where they are with what we gave, but I do want to keep in mind the 410 was for 6 months.
Right.
It was not for 12 years, but it sounds like based on the comments that we heard here that they're doing well within the budget, but I don't have the details of how they're spending that money or what the fund balance is of that. Mr. Zaragoza is looking up the payment provision in terms of it was quarterly or monthly what we were doing, because I just don't recall, but if you want to open it back up to anyone from the PAC speaking to that specifically, that might be the best information.
Well, I'd ask,
Can we
yeah,
do that?
you go ahead.
Chair, can we do that? Can we ask?
Yeah. Let's ask Ms. Mullen to come up if she could answer some of these budget issues. Would you be able to do that, Ms. Mullen? Thank you.
I was actually going to be quiet for once in a meeting. But, and I don't have the numbers in front of me either, but I do know we are getting monthly checks, and there is a deduction for city incurred expenses like utilities and IT services. That's all stuff we could not get out of in a very short amount of time. We are projected to make a profit by year's end, so I'm proud of that. We had to streamline and bring on some amazing staff because we lost a lot during the layoffs. But yeah, we're doing good. So I don't know. I just don't have any.
We don't have any numbers.
Yeah.
I would like to see, where we are, what is it that the city's paying, IT, utilities. There's a daycare center. Is the daycare center still?
The preschool to you is separate. It's out of the recreation department, and it's not part of the subsidy that goes to the PAC for them to operate. So it's in kind of it's on the site, but in a separate facility that's there.
Do you know, Mr. Harrison, if there's metered separately for utilities for that building, or is it all in one? Can we separate the utilities so we actually, and I don't know if they're separated or not.
So that would be a question that would actually go to facilities. Okay. I can tell you when the facility was originally built, it was built all together, and at one time recreation used to all be housed there. So I don't think we can. Right now it is preschool classes, and it is a fee-based program through recreation.
Okay, because I'm really interested to see what exactly the PAC costs the city as a standalone entity. If we take the preschool out, and I'm sure, we can figure out a way to just, meter those utilities separately, I would really be curious to see how much it is that it really cost us. I appreciate all the work that has gone into this, and it is a lot of work and a lot of effort on staff. I said, but my thought process was we weren't going to be subsidizing much. And if we are, I'm kind of thinking, what are we doing? Because now we have an operator where, going out and getting a management company when we already have somebody there. So those are my thoughts in regards to this.
Well, I do have some. You don't have the numbers, so maybe you can provide those in very near future. Thank you very much. But I want to start by asking Mr. Zaragoza a question about legality, because I've been contacted by lots of people about involving council members in the bidding process, and that always gives me pause because our city's had some issues with this in the past. Quite a while ago, but still, I want to be careful about that. So when people have called me, I have said, council members do not get involved in, Mr. Herrera's letter says, Have you seen the applications? Could you give us a little bit of information, Mr. Zaragoza, about what our proper role is?
Sure. So, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee, the bidding is done at the staff level. There's a number of reviewers when the responses first come in, and then there's another level of interviews beyond that phase. But at no point in that process are council members involved.
Are they allowed to be involved?
No, this is done, again, this is all done at a staff level. If there are questions that are coming in, they'd best be referred to staff.
Well, so this is what I've done. I received a number of comments and letters, and I did forward them actually to city staff for a response, because I feel that this is why we have staff to do the vetting. And certainly I want to hear if there's some issues about particular companies that want to do business in Oxnard, whether it's this or any other place. But I feel that's why we have to ask the staff to do the vetting. I did get a question about, we have a difficult situation here. We still have a very large budget deficit gap to close. We're going to be dealing with a lot of the same issues. Am I right? In the next 10 months, extremely painful for all of us, and particularly for folks who suffered layoffs, cutbacks, and I'm not looking forward to that. So that requires us to be very fiscally as prudent as we can. One of the things I'm really concerned about is it appears that despite saying that this was an extension for 6 months, and I like to believe I had something to do with that, because I was very worried about all of the things from weddings to, I went to Joshua Bell last week. The concert was wonderful, but do we have engagements beyond December 31st? We're hearing from Oh My Theater, and that really concerns me, that they've made plans to be there after the end of the year, and I'd like to know, maybe this isn't the time to find out how that happened or how it can be remediated, but that is a big problem.
So the staff report that came before the council on June 18th, it said clearly within the staff report, and I can quote from that this was a 6-month extension to the operating agreement to allow the corporation to host its events that it has booked through the end of the calendar year. See Exhibit B, which listed everything that was booked. The draft agreement does provide for them to book additional before December 31st. However, that focus is to allow already planned events. And it goes on to talk about those entered after, which there was 139 events from July 1st through June 30th, 2020. And 114 of those were from July 1st to December 31st. So there was 25 events scheduled after. This extension was to provide adequate termination notice to those that have events scheduled from January 1st to June 30th. So we spelled that out as the intent, that those events were hold dates through the corporation, not through the city itself. And I can turn it over to Jason to talk about any of the notices that went out.
Yeah, so shortly after that presentation, I don't have the exact date, but there were notices that were sent out. And actually, our office, Caroline had worked on those, and those who had events beyond or beginning in January of 2020 received those notices months ago. And the thought behind that was to allow them to either find an alternative location or give them enough time to make alternative plans, so that we weren't waiting until November or October before they got those notices.
We may have to deal with this offline, but I do think that this is something perhaps we need to have another special meeting about this. I think these are matters that the full council needs to address. There's a variety of opinions here. I'm not sure we have a consensus, except maybe to come back in a special meeting or kick it up to the council for review, and I could see this will take a lot of time. We're closing in on the end of the year with a lot of things to finish up. I do want to say that I also know that it's easy to find things online, and I would appreciate the staff looking into any allegations of negative behavior. I talked to a number of people about it, and I have to say, I'm not going to conduct the bidding process as a council member, and I'm not interested really in interfering with staff, but if people are saying things that we need to pay attention to, I want to bring that to staff's attention. So I'm going to recommend that we either do a special meeting and see how my colleagues feel about that, and or kick it up to the full council.
And just to clarify, with the special meeting to go into details about the allegations or the contract terms or the funding, I
think the funding is what I'm looking at.
Okay.
So,
Because we, here in this committee, we could recommend funding, but we are in a deficit situation. The full council would have to recommend.
Yeah, I agree. My main concern is not so much, the work that the staff has done and picking who's going to be there. My concern at this point is the fact that at least I did not anticipate having to, allocate a lot of money back to whoever we were going to pick. I mean, and if that's the case and that's what we're looking at, I mean, and Ms. Golden, you kind of said, we are looking at that and we really don't know where that money's going to come from. I would like to, see if we do have events going on in January and February, keeping, status quo, allocating whatever is needed, giving you guys time to go back, figure out what exactly it is budget-wise that you need to come back to us with. Because to me, it's really going to, be a final decision when it comes down to the dollars. And that's where my concern is at this point.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, we are very sensitive to a lot of issues. But at the end of the day, if we can't fund something, we can't fund something. But signing a blank check over, especially the situation that we're in, that is definitely a no. Because ultimately, where are we? Financially with this, and by us just saying yes, 3 months down the road, oh, by the way, this is the dollar amount, and if it's something that's, ridiculously high, then, what did we just do? And I think being up here and making that decision today as it is, as stated, I'm a no, and like I said that, and it is difficult because I know at the end of the day, it's, in a way it was shaped and formed. It's, we need to get this done or, it's going to be closed for X number of months. So, originally what was the plan for the January events? What was the plan for the Martin Luther King event? Because realistically speaking, if we said yes today to this, they were not going to be open in January. It was going to take them X number of months to open up because they were going to want to open with a brand new slate, and knowing that, my guess they probably wouldn't open up until next fiscal year.
And to address most of what you said, Councilman Madrigal, you're correct. I mean, the plan was to close down in January, and we as staff and as council, the direction that I heard, at least in July, and I wasn't here for your council meeting, I watched it on the direction of the RFP, is to do a process, and that process takes time, and with every intention of trying to reduce the amount of any closure at the PAC because we know what a big community asset it is. But you can't rush this process. And I mean, we closed it, or we recommended that on June 18th. We came to the committee July 23rd. We released an RFP August 5th. We left it open for 3 weeks. We were asked to extend it by bidders that were interested in it for 1 week. We did that. We did interviews within 2 weeks. We did second interviews the week after that. We pushed as hard as we could to shorten any potential downtime at the site. But even doing that, you're going to have the closure that you're talking about in the transition period. Potentially, if it's OPAC, maybe not, because they're there already, they're trained, they have that. But in going through the RFP process is big. It was for us on the most qualified, not necessarily who knows the community best. And that is such an important aspect. And I say that scared of the reaction that I'm going to get to that, because the community and the OPAC know the community. They know what is needed in terms of what the community wants there. But what we found through the RFP process is the qualifications of some of the other procedural things that need to happen. Venue Tech has that to bring us into this tier. I mean, we went after Live Nations, we went after AEGs, we went after all these tier, what they call the A versus the B category. Some of it's our size, some of it's our location. But when going through all of this and getting the proposals that we got, we had 4 proposals, 1 dropped out. We interviewed all of them. And going through all of this, we learned that it will take some money, especially in the beginning, to get this to the management level that we need in terms of the operating procedures and policies and some of the review of the fee structures and some of those kind of key elements. But also knowing that we need the OPAC as a group, to that vein to our community and that heartbeat to that community, and that's going to take some time to get through with an operator. But yes, to your point, Councilman Madrigal, there was the understanding that it's going to need to close based on that timing that we had. You can't go through 3 months to select, to interview, to negotiate, and to have these people be ready to go at a drop of a hat to have their event come right back. I mean, we heard that from New West Symphony in the very beginning of this, is we plan these things out well over a year in advance. We've spent money on marketing. We do this. They had to make their decision right after we said that we're only doing this for 6 months. They made their decision shortly thereafter to not try to book the rest of their season there. So if you made a selection today, which we're not asking, and that is the point that I wanted to clarify, we came here to have a community conversation, a council conversation to begin, because there is this expectation. There is the My Theaters that are still hoping that they can have their projection in January, and we didn't want that question to be a rumor mill of what is it. We wanted to have that in a very transparent, open way of the contract ends December 31st, funding only went to December 31st. We're not asking you to enter into a contract with Venue Tech today. Even if you did, they would not have a transition plan and staff fully ready to go with every of those remaining events that we had in 2020. And quite frankly, some of those events from 2020 no longer want to be there right now because of the uncertainty of either not working with OPAC, who they're comfortable with, or not knowing if the city was going to make a decision. And the bigger question in the room is, and you have all hit it, is where does the funding come from? We are still in the same financial situation we were in when you had to make those hard decisions in June. And if you fund this out of Measure O, you still have to make other hard decisions of what aren't you going to fund. Because as you know, we recommended $9 million in funding reductions. You took about 6, 7 maybe of those. You know, a lot went to Measure O. So that Measure O bucket keeps getting smaller and smaller, maybe to the point that it's not there. So, I mean, that's still a difficult decision. And I think that goes to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, of a bigger council discussion on that funding side of it. There is not funding that Venue Tech has asked for specifically, and there is not a funding source that we've identified to pay for, regardless if it's $1,000 or $1 million. And I made those numbers up completely. Don't worry, those aren't the numbers in Venue Tech's proposal, but just to use that as an analogy, the money's not there that we've identified to bring forward to you today, and that's why we're not asking you to enter into a contract or to make a recommendation on the funding.
So what's really on the agenda is to provide direction, and I think you've heard some direction. Maybe not with one voice, and provide direction to go to the council. Did you want to say something? No? So I do think there's a bigger discussion than this committee can have. I know Ms. Mullen will let you say something.
Just 2 things, real
Yeah,
quick.
please.
did some down and dirty numbers. So 410 for the 6 months, and then after the utilities and IT services have been taken out, our monthly check that we get is $36,000. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that our rental coordinator, Jose Becerra, has actually been keeping a log of everyone who's interested in booking events, for our own use or for, the operator who would take over in January, of anyone who wants to book events in 2020. We currently have a list of 102 people who are interested in that, and some of those are repeat clients like Jehovah's Witness and others. So that's a pretty sizable number of rental.
Ms. Mullen, they understand, though.
Oh, yes,
might-
fully. It is not a reservation, a confirmation. It is just a, hey, you're on a list, and that list will be
right. Thank
passed
you.
along. Thank you.
So I think you've heard the direction. We need to go. I think we need to go to the full council with this matter, and of course, we don't have a lot of time. The funding does run out in less than 2 months now, and I'd like the advice of the full council on this. That's my opinion. Colleagues? Yes?
What are we presenting? Because I don't think the same exact presentation.
Well, we
Or are we going to get more information before then? Because if there's no numbers, then honestly, a true decision can't be made.
I'm sorry, Mr. Spellman. We're not going to go back to public comment. We have to raise this with the full council so that there can be a decision made about whether or not there is more money for PAC to continue operating, and whether or not the full council wants to go with the recommended bidder. And I think that we haven't made a decision about that as a group. I think I'm hearing from Councilman Madrigal, you don't want to go with them. Councilwoman Basua is questioning that as well. I trust my staff to have done the work, as painful as it might have been. But I want the full council to weigh in rather than me on whether or not, I don't know that we would just say we're not going to go any further with this. There needs to be a full council decision. That would be my request.
I'm okay with sending it to council. However, I do feel that we need to take a vote if we are okay with Venue Tech as is right now.
So I'm not saying I'm not okay with Venue Tech. I just want to make sure I clarify that. That's not my concern. My concern is, where are we going to get this money? And how much is that money going to be? So I think that you're going to have to talk to Venue Tech, get those numbers, and then in order for us to make an informative decision, because we do have, the PAC board there now. We do have them. We're giving them, according to my calculations, $68,000. We're spending $36,000. They're getting a $32,000 check a month. So I want to see what those numbers look like, because my concern again is, and like Mayor Ramirez said, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez said, we're going to have to make really tough decisions on this. And that's where my concern is at this point. Not so much with who's going to, be leading the PAC. I'm more concerned about the finances.
And to address the finances, on page 8 of the PowerPoint that we went through, the items that we're still working with Venue Tech so that we can bring exactly what Councilman Madrigal is talking about is how much money are we really talking about? Because I understand this idea of a conversation, an abstract of $1, $1,000, $1 million is very difficult, and finding a lot less money in Measure O than a lot more is easier to do. But we are working with Venue Tech, and OPAC provided some of this information during the RFP process for us as well, but the transition plan, the equipment inventory, the software computer needs, the landscape and facility maintenance, and some of the information that Carolyn just provided, as well as an interest party of 102, that all changes obviously the expenses and revenues that come in. And the operations that we had with OPAC are the only example that we have for 6 months to look at. And really, by the time we're drafting this report, that's only July, August, September, and a little bit of October to pull any data from, because prior to that, and you've heard the board say it, the overhead that the city had and some of those costs that are part of it aren't the same as what would it be if OPAC or Venue Tech may be running it. So we're still working with Venue Tech to kind of nail down these so we can get a more concrete budget that we could present either to committee or council. And then in your packet, the attachment had categories of expenses and revenues. And this is very similar to any budget, but just trying to make sure that the committee and the community understood that it still includes things like the utilities, the repairs, marketing, much of the budget that OPAC has today. Any of the corporations that we saw coming in through the submittal process or the other cities that we talked about, these are all common things in a budget. And we're trying to kind of get more secure numbers for those because we don't want to put out a number to have exactly what Councilman Madrigal of a blank check. We're not willing to give a blank check. We don't have money to do that with. We need to know what are we paying for and what are we getting out of that. And one of the benefits that Venue Tech had is their reporting system that showed just that. They're very comfortable working within municipal contracting to be able to have that transparent reporting back to the community.
So I'm going to recommend that this entire matter go to full council. Are we voting then? Okay, let's vote.
Okay. Member Madrigal?
Aye.
Chair Ramirez?
Aye.
Member Basua?
Aye.
The motion carries 3-0.
Thank you all. Are there any items for future agenda matters? Councilwoman? Okay. All right. I do think that we're at some point going to get information about the murals that are funded.
So we had the one update on the murals that came and the programming for that. It since went to the Arts Committee. Do you want
Yes.
one more on the final selection or the
Yes.
final rendering? We have that then on your future, and we also have the volunteer program that'll be coming before you.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.